Welcome to the Leonard Peikoff Show. A well-known teacher and author, Dr. Leonard Peikoff is Ayn Rand's chosen heir and the leading authority on her philosophy of objectivism, a philosophy she presented in her famous novels, The Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged. And now, Leonard Peikoff.
Today, the revolt against intelligence here in the United States. Are your children being taught to think in today's schools and to respect the faculty of reason? Or are the schools and the whole culture working actively to destroy your children's minds and to make them sneer at intelligence? I say the latter. There is a campaign against reason being waged in America. Do you notice it too? Does it upset you, or do you perhaps agree with it? Call and tell me. We'll be back after this message. It's 12:06. My name is Leonard Peikoff. I am an objectivist, a follower of the philosophy of Ayn Rand. Each week we discuss a different topic from the point of view of her philosophy. I'd like to welcome Prescott, Arizona, who has joined us within the last few seconds. Our subject today, the revolt against intelligence. And I want to state my opening piece by starting with a brief quotation from Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. One of the characters thinks, quote, "Of all the living species that train their young in the art of survival, the cats who teach their kittens to hunt, the birds who spend such strident effort on teaching their fledglings to fly, yet man, whose tool of survival is the mind, does not merely fail to teach a child to think, but devotes the child's education to the purpose of destroying his brain." From the first catchphrases flung at a child to the last, it is like a series of shocks to freeze his motor, to undercut the power of his consciousness. Now she goes on to give many examples of the kind of catchphrases that are thrown at children. Here's just a scattering. Don't ask so many questions. Children should be seen and not heard. Don't try to understand. Believe. Your heart is more important than your mind. Who are you to know? Society knows best. And she concludes this passage, men would shudder if they saw a mother bird plucking the feathers of her young, then pushing him out of the nest to struggle for survival. Yet that was what they did to their children. Unquote. The revolt against intelligence dominates our schools and our culture. It's everywhere in two versions. In philosophy, these are called skepticism and mysticism. I want to take a minute on each. Skepticism, you will find that mostly among intellectuals, professors, and liberals. And they have a very simple viewpoint. Knowledge is impossible. We can never know things as they are. Reason or intelligence is therefore helpless. There are no absolutes because there's nothing reliable or unchanging. There are no facts. Who can know a fact? There is no truth. It's all a matter of opinion. What's true for you, that's the mark of a skeptic. What's true for you is not true for me. What's true for blacks is not true for whites. What's true for women is not true for men, etc. In other words, there is no objective truth. There's only private, subjective opinions. The motto of this school is, nothing is certain but death and taxes, and not even they are. Now, this stuff is taught to our kids from preschool right on to the PhD level. I know because I've taught in American colleges, east and west, graduate and undergraduate, engineering, arts, business schools. You hear the same skeptic bromides everywhere. What do you think is the effect of all of it on today's youth? It's very simple. Why study? Why try to gain knowledge when knowledge is impossible? Why struggle to figure out the answers when there aren't any answers? And thus the feeling that school is a giant fraud, and to hell with it. This is why so many American kids have no motivation, why they cheat with such obliviousness, why they learn little or nothing, why they graduate high school, many of them without the ability to read, and why the United States is the laughingstock of the world in international tests of education. These kids hear in countless forms, reason is helpless and there's nothing else. So they give up. They feel futility and despair. Ask yourself, do you think this is irrelevant to the epidemic of drugs, of alcoholism and suicide that is sweeping our schools? A lot of it is the direct result of the phony skeptical education, in quotes, that these people are getting. Now, I said that there were two versions. The other is mysticism. You see that mostly in religions and conservatives. And mysticism is the view that knowledge of reality can be acquired, but only by non-rational means, only by something beyond the senses and the mind. For example, by faith, revelation, intuition, feelings. The field is endless. Mystics may believe that you can get some knowledge by reason, but their idea is the most important knowledge we cannot get by our own minds and logic. And to this extent, the mystic says, skeptics are right. Reason is pretty useless. But, the mystic goes on, we don't need reason. We don't need it. There's a supernatural world to turn to for knowledge if we would just hand ourselves over to its spokesman and believe in what they say. Now, mysticism, too, is taught everywhere today, and it's taught as the only alternative to skeptics. Mystics are those who say, oh, no, there are absolutes. There is truth. There is certainty. There are real moral principles. Of course, we can't prove any of this. We just take it on faith. That's the mystic way. Now, mystics have gone far beyond traditional religion today. Their argument is like this: if we can believe on faith in the God of Christianity and Judaism, why stop there? Why can't we have new faith, new revelations? Who are you to say that we have to follow yesterday's scripture? So, for example, the whole New Age spiritualism. What is spiritualism? That's the idea that matter, the physical world, is low or unreal. How do they know that? How do they know that things are really spirit? They feel it. They just know it. They have an intuition. That's mysticism. Or what about the New Age reincarnation, as preached by Shirley MacLaine, who got it directly from Plato? How does she know she's a reincarnation of the Pharaoh from thousands of years ago? She feels it. She has an intuition. That's mysticism. Look around you. We have New Agers and old-time religionists and new-style Jesus freaks and Moonies and ESP parapsychologists and self-proclaimed witches and people who come out of UFOs. I don't even have the time in an hour show to list the weird cults springing up everywhere. And the point is, if you ask these people, what is your reason? How do you prove your ideas? They say, reason? Proof? To hell with that. We just know. We had a revelation. We have faith. Now you see the common ground here. Both these camps say reason is no good. That is what I call the revolt against intelligence. And one then says, we've got nothing else, so we're helpless. The other says, oh yes, there is something else. There's a supernatural supplement. The mind of America is shrinking because of this revolt, and it's endangering the American political system. You cannot have free-thinking, independent individuals if none of them trust their own minds. What's the real alternative to both of these assaults? The philosophy of reason. Reason is the faculty that starts with the senses and draws conclusions by logic. If you accept reason, you can know absolutes, truth, certainty, but by rational means and only by rational means. As our founding fathers used to say, we know these things by our own unaided reason. That's what gives us objective knowledge. Now, if this were taught in our schools, think of the dramatic effects for good. We would be turning out motivated learners, not bored skeptics, and critical thinkers, not dogmatic cultists. What do you think? Are you a skeptic? Are you a mystic? Are you a champion of reason? Call in. Tell me what experience you've had in today's schools or culture that's relevant to this issue. The time is 12:17. My name is Leonard Peikoff. Our subject today is the revolt against intelligence. Paul, you are on KIEV. How are you doing?
Dr. Peikoff, hello.
Oh.
I called you on your first show. I've been a practicing objectivist for a number of years. I'm also director of a small, well, medium-sized company, I guess you would call it, in Orange County. And I want to tell you that definitely everything that you say about the education system and the attack upon reason as it pertains to all of those areas that you mentioned is well in place. There's another area which is severely under attack, and that is, right within the company that I work for, which is engaged in very reality-based pursuits of designing and developing and manufacturing product. We have these corporate training programs that come in.
Were you, in other words, work out programs to train personnel in other in other businesses? Is that it?
No. These are for our own people in our own company, and these are training programs which are billed as designed to improve our ability to make good decisions.
So it's a supplement to ordinary school education?
Yes, very much. This
and
is
what
adult education sponsored by the company and delivered on company time to the employees of the company, and supported by some matching grant programs by the state.
Well, now give me an idea how you're going to tie this into our discussion of the revolt against intelligence. Presumably you're trying to enhance intelligence, or is your point...
Yes, you would presume that that's what these courses are going to do. But, as a director, I've sort of been asked to look over course material that would be presented to the people in the area of the company over which I have direct influence. And upon studying the course materials, I come to the conclusion that the graduates of this course would be far less able to do the work that they're intended to do, far less able to come to, good...
You mean that the corporate education that's supposed to supplement is making them even worse than they come out of school?
Absolutely.
Give me one example, Paul, and then I have to move on.
Well, I want to read you one sentence. It says, this is about the fellow who is putting this course out. He says, he is known for being driven towards achievement, straightforward and objective, as he offers practical and creative management tools and techniques successfully used in a gray versus black and white real world. So you see what his fundamental premise is. He goes on...
How would you name for our listeners the fundamental premise? There are no absolutes. There is no black and white.
Absolutely. He believes that world is a floating gray miasma where anything goes and your truth isn't my truth, and
so
vice versa.
That's a perfect example of skepticism.
And he's going to come and educate us as to how better to function in that world. And he does things like, instead of relying on principles and reason, there are lists, and you write down, you have a problem, you parse it all into these little lists, and then, at the end of the list, without understanding really how anything came about, you come out with one answer which is better than the others.
Yeah,
and
well, I appreciate that. I'm sure you're right, Paul, and I'd like to be able to get all the details, but I got a lot of people I want to speak to.
I'm sure you do.
Thank you for giving us this insight that it's not just the public and private school system, but that businessmen are pouring their money into, I'm sure, programs which they learned in school, and they're just making it worse. Thank you, Paul.
All right.
I'm going to go now to Dean.
Deanna.
Deanna, excuse me.
That's okay.
Welcome to the show. We love to have female callers.
Oh, I just heard about your show. I was so thrilled. I was so thrilled to find out that you have a radio show.
Why were you thrilled?
Oh, I've been an Ayn Rand fan for the last 5 years.
Oh, really?
And boy, do I love her. But I wanted to make a comment.
Okay.
I am a student, and I am a writing major. And I don't know if you know this, but semester's over, and we just got some of our grades. And my writing teacher told me, she said, you're not going to get an A. She said, I'm going to give you an A- because you have mastered the English language, and so says that mastery is oppression, and you argue with me so much, and you refuse to accept that ambiguity is an art, so I am not going to give you an A.
That is truly monstrous. That really takes my breath away. I thought she was going to say you mastered the English language, but your content